Andrea SweetCakes. That's me. Alright guys, let's get our cake on. So now we're going to create our little bunny, but first we're going to start with all of our bunny accents. And I chose to go with fondant with a buttload of Tylose in it, because I find it just sets up so fast, like so fast. And I actually created my own little template for the ears. I just folded a piece of paper in half, drew a line that I liked that looked like a bunny ear, and cut it out. Unfolded it, and there you have like 2 equal sides. So we're going to create 2 ears. I just like to smooth out my cut edges wherever there's a little bit of fray or just unevenness. Nobody likes to see harsh lines. I'm all about the smooth. Unless it's meant to be harsh, I like to smooth out my lines. Our 2 ears all cut out. I'm just sizing them up, making sure that they're both equal in size. So, smoothing out the edges, making them look all nice and pretty. And I trimmed off, I found them to be a little long, so I trimmed off some of the length. And I've got bamboo skewers here, and I'm just pushing in a line where I want the dowel to go, or the skewer. And then I went in with a Dresden tool to kind of widen the line a little. And now I'm using a boning tool to kind of open it up a little bit further. I don't know why I chose to do this instead of just like pushing down with the dowel. I just thought maybe it would gradually push the fondant out of the way without like being too aggressive and cracking it. So now I'm smoothing and making sure that the skewers are flush with the ears. Same process for the second ear. And I'm just using the smoother, applying some pressure, and making sure that the skewer is flush with the ear. Securing them in place. I'm not sure if I'm using water or piping gel. Those are my 2 main go-tos. If water ain't good enough, then I go to piping gel. So there. Now they're ready. Well, not ready. They're skewered. Making sure they're in there. And now we're going to move on to the center part, the little pink parts of the ear. Again, I created my own stencil, so feel free to make your own stencils and get creative with the shape and the size. I was working on a 4-inch cake, so this is the size I chose. Smoothing my edges. And I'm using water to apply the ears. Or the center of the ear. Now I'm just adding a little bit of shape. I'm just kind of pinching the tips of the ears, rounding off the edges, and I got some elephant skin, and that's why I'm using the boning tool to kind of like smooth out the elephant skin. And it actually worked really well. There was barely any of it left once I was happy with the shape. And I want to prop up the sides, and I was just lazy. I could have got paper towel or something, but I just rolled out some fondant and squished it under the sides to kind of cup the ears a little bit and to support them. So again, I just had a little bit of shape, so they just weren't 2 flat ears. Even though my bunny is nothing close to real, I still wanted to add a little more than just flat ears. It's like, okay, leave it alone. You have no idea how long I finished with those stupid ears. Like an hour. Now I'm creating the arms, and I just rolled a fat sausage and cut it in half on an angle so that I have 2 equal size arms that are gonna stand straight up. Like he's screaming, Happy Easter! I was just using a Dresden tool to work in 2 little lines to create his paws. I like to take that Dresden tool and like push the tip down at the very end of the line, and it kind of adds this cute little, I don't know, it just makes it look cuter and just cuter. Deeper at that one part or something. So the hands are done, and now we're making the feet. It's a little bunny feet. I wanted them to kind of look floppy and big. So I'm just sizing it up to the other one and making sure that I have 2 equal feet. Kind of working like with a teardrop shape, but super fat at the fat end of the teardrop. And then I'm using the Dresden tool to kind of push in where his toes would fold over and kind of flop forward. And I'm using the boning tool to kind of round that out so it's not just like this straight hard line. And cornstarch on my hands, buffing out any finger marks. I just discovered this tool lately. I don't know where it's been hiding in my arsenal of cake tools, but I love it. It just creates these awesome lines. So I'm using the boning tool to spread open that line so that it helps to round out the toes so they're not just like these straight cuts down. And again, a lot of fiddling, and I spent probably a half an hour on these stupid feet, but I was happy with them in the end. So all our features are done, and we're going to put it on a dusted board and allow them to dry. I'll give you a little tip. I have a food dehydrator that I think comes in so handy, and it's not to dehydrate food, it's to dry out my gum paste in a matter of hours. So I keep it on the lowest setting, and I just lay it in the dehydrator, and a couple hours later, most of my items are pretty well set up to the point where they can stand or not sag. So after they have dried in my dehydrator for overnight pretty much, they're nice and set up, and now we're going to add the little pink pads to his feet and his paws. I wanted to add more roundness to the pads, so I used saran wrap to give me that nice bubbly edge. So we're going to apply the large pad first. I was thinking of doing a heart for this part, but I don't know, I ended up going with an oval in the end. I just think it's so cute. I love these little oval cutters. I cut out circles to put on the paws, and I didn't like the way the circles looked, so I ended up cutting out tiny little ovals. And I felt that it was more cohesive with the paw, like his little feet. So, hey, it's never too late to change something. Well, not in this case. If I get too much water, if water comes out, I'll like dry off my brush quickly with cornstarch and then go in and soak up that excess water with cornstarch, and it usually leaves no kind of evidence behind that I had water oozing out. And here I am just finicking and playing, and there we have our paws all done. Now we're ready to get into the nitty-gritty. We're gonna cover this bunny now. Here we go. So I've got white fondant and my cake already crumb coated. I don't have the footage, but I applied 2 little teardrop shapes for his muzzle before I applied fondant. And you'll see as I smooth out the fondant, you'll see the shape. So I'm just working my fondant out. This is like the worst part of covering, well, not covering, but doing this entire cake. I hate covering odd shapes with fondant. Just take your time and just slowly work out all those wrinkles and creases. I went extra thick too, just to make sure that I had a lot of wiggle room, because I knew it was going to get tight there at the end with a lot of pleating. So I wanted to make sure that I could open up that fondant and not have it risk tearing on me. So just keep smoothing, take your time. I cut off all my excess if I find that it's adding too much weight or giving me too much excess in the pleats. I just keep trimming. So I've finally made it all the way to the bottom, making sure that fondant is on there nice and tight. And there you can see the muzzle. And I'm just going around with my fondant smoother. This is a very difficult cake to smooth with a fondant smoother because of this little muzzle. But I end up pushing the cake all the way to the edge of the cake board and having it hang over so that I can go up and down without knocking the muzzle. You'll see, I do it later. Trimming away my excess after I'm happy with how smooth I've got it. See there, I've hung it over the edge of my turntable so that I can go up and down and not be restricted by my turntable. Again, I probably spent an hour smoothing out the fondant on this cake, and I am just so methodical. But there we go. All covered. And looking like I don't know what at this moment, but I promise it's going to be a bunny. I'm just smoothing, rounding off the edge and knocking off any little debris that might be hanging around. Some stragglers, unwanted visitors. And now I'm just buffing with a chunk of fondant. Like I said earlier, it just like molds to any shape as you go over it. So it helps to remove any fingerprints and air bubbles and stuff like that. You can manipulate it and get rid of it with a little pin if you need to. But I'm just taking my time, really smoothing out any of the flaws that I can find. And now we're ready to start defining some of his facial features. So I've used a Dresden tool and then a veining tool to kind of add that line between his muzzle. And a large ball tool right at the corners of his muzzle to kind of imply that he's smiling. I'm just really making sure that oh, there, now you can see. It almost gives him like that cute little, like, I don't know, cartoony smile. And I'm modeling the nose from some pink fondant. Just making like a general triangle shape. Using water to apply it. And now our bunny has a nose. See what I mean? That's just a nose. And look how much time I'm spending on it. Like, oh, Andrea. I do believe. I'm sorry the camera angle. It was really hard. I live in a small place, so it's hard to get the camera angles. But I'm using a ball tool just to open up some eye sockets. And to be honest, I kind of wish I made the eyes lower, closer to the nose, and maybe a little more, even closer together. But that's just my own personal opinion. I'm letting you guys know so that maybe when you recreate this cake, you could take my advice. Because this is all trial and error. I was like, hey, I'm going to make a bunny cake, and I just went for it. So after I got the eye sockets, I am rolling little balls of black fondant and popping them in. And now my bunny's got some eyes. I debated to go, to give him blue eyes, and you don't see it because it was edited out, but I put blue and black in one in each socket, and I end up going with the black. I do so much trial and error as I decorate. You never know until you try what's going to look good, right? So I'm just adding the catch light, a little highlight in his eyes that makes him extra cute and a little more lifelike. So now our bunny needs some brows. Just tiny little sausages. You can make these any size you want. You can go super big. Again, I tried with big ones and I end up going small. I thought the small was nicer, more expressive. And I'm going to create his teeth from straight up gum paste. I don't know why I chose gum paste, but I did. It gets super crusty on the outside really fast. I think that's why. And this was just a lot of finicking and playing with until I got the right size. And I just used the back of my knife to create a nice straight line without cutting all the way through the fondant to create two teeth. And I popped those aside to let them dry for a little bit before I applied them. Now we're going to use some pink petal dust to give him some cute little rosy cheeks. I added 3 little whisker holes with just a sharp end of a tool, and I poked in like a little triangle shape. You'll see it once they're highlighted by the pink. But just, a little bit at a time. I like to gradually add color and build it up. I added the pink to his little muzzle on his little cheeks and then across the top of his nose. And then a little bit below his eyebrows. I decided to open up a mouth for him. I thought I'll just leave a muzzle and then 2 teeth popping out. But, well, you can't even see. That's right, my camera died. Oh. Well, anyway, now that our parts are dry, we're ready to dust them and add a little more life. So I've got pink petal dust that I muted with just some cornstarch, so it wasn't as drastic. And just take your time and don't go in heavy-handed. Like I said, I like to build my color up, so I go in really gently until, you know, I make 6 or 100 passes until I've got enough color on there. And then if I think I got too heavy-handed, I'll go in with cornstarch and try to brush away some of the excess. So I'm just highlighting any indentations, I guess, like the toe area right there, where the little floppy line. I just wanted to give him this cute little like pink aura. He's got an aura and it's pink. So now I'm dusting around each of the pads. This is optional, you don't have to do this, but once I did all the lines, I was like, ooh, maybe I'll just take it up a notch and do around the pads. So I ended up doing it. Now we're working on the ears, and I'm just starting at the base of the inner ear. I'm not taking the color all the way up, I just want to add a little bit of depth right there at the bottom. And then we're just going to follow any free edge of the ear and highlight that with some of the pink petal dust to create that aura I spoke of, my bunny's pink aura. I got a little heavier, I guess, right at the tip. I made it a little darker. And then you hit the bottom there, a little more depth. And there's the pieces all dusted. Now I'm just adding a little bit of, I think it's silk white shimmer dust, or luster dust, sorry. You can't even see it, to be honest, in the photos or in the footage, but it's there. And there we have, there's all our parts all done and ready for assembly. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye!